Once again, welcome to Job Seekers Toolkit, the job search. Today's class will be hosted by myself, Bryn Kiefer, with the Plano Public Library, and assisted by Caitlin and Heather, acting respectively as chat moderator and tech assistants. If you have any questions, you can please drop them in the chat at any time, and depending on whether it is tech related or program related, the question will be passed along to the appropriate person. Here are some ground rules before we get started with today's program. You will be muted during this class and have your video blocked, so you will only see my screen. At the top of your screen, you can find an exit full screen option if you need to get to other things on your computer during today's class. You are welcome to ask questions during the program or request the instructor repeat information at any time. You should see the icon at the bottom of your screen indicating the chat, which will open the window for the chat. This is set to be seen by library staff only. Please note that any inappropriate comments will cause your immediate removal from the class. Questions during the class may be answered in the chat box, be held until a break, or the end of class, or they could be asked at that time if they are pressing. In our Google Drive, you can find a course handout with some additional information. And a recording of this class will be available in a few days. If you would like to watch the class today and then review it after getting the recording, you are welcome to do so. Additionally, and we'll have more information about this at the end, we will have a job search workshop at the end of the week on Friday, in person at Haggard if you're interested in attending that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. If I can, there we go. Okay, so my name is Bryn, as I've mentioned. As we get started, I do need to remind you that I am a librarian, not a business expert. The information I'm going to share today is designed to be an overview and help connect you with additional resources that may be helpful during your job search. Our focus today is, of course, the job search, which is the process of searching for, as well as evaluating and applying for jobs. Hopefully by the end of this class, you'll be able to meet all of the objectives listed here, which is to evaluate job search platforms and job postings, to complete all steps of mainstream job applications, apply tips and tricks to improve your job search, track the status of your job applications, and navigate a few different unique situations, such as work gaps where you haven't worked for a long time and are resuming a career, or career transitions where you have been in one career and are trying to move to a different one. Okay, so the job search. So what are you looking for and why are you searching for a job? There could be any number of reasons why this is the case, and these reasons will help inform your job search. Some possible reasons could include that you have lost your job and need stable income. That could include that you are trying to re-enter the workforce after a long gap, or you are new to the workforce and or pursuing a new career path. And lastly, it could be that you are dissatisfied with your current job and are looking for something a little bit more suitable to your specific needs. Regardless of your specifics of searching, that will inform your job search. So some examples of what might determine what you are looking for include your fields of interest. This defines your job search and your approach, as different fields have different requirements and different time frames and many different aspects to them. If you're uncertain about which career field you want to enter, you may wish to take a career aptitude test to determine something that's most suitable for you. Additionally, depending on the field, you may find that there are alternative or preferred ways of conducting job searches, as opposed to simply browsing a job search browser. You may find job listings on listservs, through networking by talking to other people in the field, at job fairs, and more. The job level will also inform your job search. This depends on the amount of experience, education, and previous skills that both you have and the job requires. Um, Depending on the field, career changers and returning to workforce individuals may need to start at entry level. While in other cases, if you are changing from a comparable career, you may find that you are able to enter a mid-level or higher position. And of course, all of that is indicated by your previous experiences and unique situation. Your working hours will help inform your job search. You need to determine how often and when you want to work. There's all kinds of different schedules that people can find themselves working. They can find themselves working consistent full-time schedules with a standard set of working hours, such as 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Um, there may be full-time options on second or third shift, which means that they could be hours that are closer to 12 to 9 or 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. in some cases. And that may not be desirable for everyone, but maybe that's an option for you, in which case there may be some unique career possibilities out there. If you're looking for part-time work, you may have more flexibility but less predictability. And that can be a great benefit for those who may have other commitments, such as families that need care or school responsibilities. And lastly, career contract work allows you to set your own hours in many cases. Um, this, of course, is an interesting option that we see more and more in today's career field. It's a good option for those that are self-motivated and able to apply unique skills to a competitive market, able to market their skills to companies and other individuals. Um, Such as if you are a web developer, you may be able to develop contracts with companies that need a web developer. However, the drawbacks include the fact that usually these don't include benefits, these positions. Taxes are often not deducted in advance, so you'll have to set aside cash for that. And additionally, if you are not a self-motivated individual, you may find it hard to keep a discipline up to work the number of hours that are necessary. Additionally, location is one aspect that can really affect your job search. There are currently a lot of remote opportunities on the job market, not in all fields, but certainly some of them. If that's something that you're looking at, then it's worth considering the pros and cons. Um, some of which include, do you work better at home or in an office where you see other people? Is the time and money saved by not commuting worth any opportunity cost from seeing people in person? And of course, the traditional question about, are you willing to move for a new position? Putting aside remote work, if you are doing a job search and you expand to other locations, is that a place you're willing to move? These are just a set of examples of some circumstances that may help narrow your search and uh, give you a good little checklist as you are viewing job postings to decide whether something is a deal breaker or if it's worth considering. Are there any questions at this time?
We did have a question on where one could find career aptitude tests.
Aha, we have some e-resources that may assist with that, and I can help search for those in a few minutes. Um, any other questions?
Not at this time.
All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and open that up actually before I forget. Let me see here. So if you are on our website, let's see, going to Research and Learn, which is where all of our databases live, and under Business and Career, let's see. I think Learning Express Library might have some options. I'll go ahead and access that now to see if I'm correct. Career Center Plus, I believe, is where it would be. Um, Prepare for the work keys assessments. Doesn't appear that that's actually there. Let me see if any of the other ones have it. I could be wrong, and it's the case that we do not have a career aptitude test in our databases. One option, though, if you're exploring careers and you're not sure about what's even out there, is the I'm blanking. It's the Career Outlook, the Occupational Outlook Handbook, which is a great option for exploring all kinds of different careers and their current situations. For example, if the field is growing, there we go.
Just to jump in, Bryn.
Yes.
So under Learning Express, there is a career aptitude option. It's just not called a career aptitude. If you go under Job and Career Accelerator, I believe, there's Find a Career Match. And under Find a Career Match, there's the Interest Matcher and Skills Matcher. So you can find different occupations based on those two options.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so that's with your library card.
Exactly. So free option is an excellent thing through the library, and also the Occupational Outlook Handbook is another way to continue exploring those options that you find there. All right, so that is that one. If there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and continue on to the next slide. All right, preparing for the job search. So last week we talked about updating your professional documents. That would include, of course, your resume, your a basic cover letter that you can revise as you go. Make sure that you have your references ready if that's something that's necessary in your field. And of course, if you have a portfolio, then that would be important to ensure you have accessible as well. Additionally, as you are setting up for a job search, you'll want to make sure that your contact information is both accessible and professional. That includes both your email and your phone. As you are conducting a job search, make sure that you are using an appropriate email address, something with your name, ideally. The specific provider isn't as important, but ideally use your first and last name in your email address rather than something related to a hobby or definitely not something inappropriate. And also check your junk email regularly, as often automated messages and those from actual people that you are searching for jobs from might end up there. For your phone and voicemail, make sure that you set up a voicemail and that your voicemail inbox isn't full. That way, people that are calling to offer you interviews or jobs are actually able to contact you. Additionally, when you set up your voicemail intro, please make sure that it is a professional voicemail intro. Don't have it be a joke intro, as that will come off poorly to those that are calling to offer you interviews and jobs. Any questions at this time?
Not at this time.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about job search platforms as part of our first learning objective. There's a lot of different websites out there, and we'll just cover some of the main ones to kind of talk about the functions they serve in the overall job search process. So first up, we have job search engines, which are used to view job postings nationwide and internationally in many cases. The most frequently and well-known sites that are specifically for this purpose are Indeed.com and Monster Jobs, which you can see over to the right there. They function in a very similar way. You input search terms, and it pulls up job postings that contain those terms. Depending on your specific field and your industry, You may have to do some work to determine what the best search terms are for your specific position, or if you are just within a certain field, there may be certain terms that pull up more job postings for you. As a whole, this is a great starting point, but we do recommend using these with caution. Often these search platforms are not necessarily being posted to directly. Rather, they are automatically taking job posts off of actual company websites. And these companies aren't monitoring or posting these directly. There may be outdated old job postings on these sites. Um, you are best off using these sites to find opportunities and accessing the postings directly from company websites. We also suggest ignoring any easy apply or apply now buttons on Indeed directly unless those companies prefer applying through Indeed. Um, that's because often those job applications may not go anywhere. They may not go to the company. Or it could turn out that the company isn't searching for someone for that position anymore if it's outdated. And your application may not end up going anywhere for that reason. So going to the company website allows you to screen for which job postings are current and also reminds you to tailor your cover letter and resume to postings when possible. Um, let's see. So that is what we have for job search engines. Additionally, there are a few other peripheral sites. So Glassdoor is a website you can use to check on company evaluations. And this is useful because you can read company reviews from real employees sharing their experiences. One thing that's important to remember about a job search is it's not just you looking for a job. You want to try to find a job that is a good fit for you at a company that will treat you respectfully and offer you appropriate compensation. So this is a great way to kind of screen out those companies that you don't want to work for. Similar to how you might use, say, Yelp or other review sites to screen companies you don't want to buy from. So that's a great thing to do as you are taking preliminary steps. It could also be the reverse, where you determine that a company is a really great option. Um, Additionally, many of you are likely familiar with the site LinkedIn, which is considered a career networking site. In many ways, you can think of this as a digital resume, as companies often check your account during the job application vetting process. Both of the above options do include job postings as well, but once again, you should plan to apply through the company website specifically. All right, any questions at this time?
Not at this moment.
Fantastic. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat and we will address them. All right, some additional job search tools that aren't necessarily mainstream functions. Here at Plano Library, we have a lot of great options for you through our databases. Reference Solutions is one that is an excellent option if you are searching for a job, as it actually contains a job search engine in it, populating that search with information from Indeed.com. So in many ways, you can use Reference Solutions instead of Indeed and get similar or the same results. The benefit to doing this is that you can actually conduct company research alongside job postings. You can view verified company history and growth periods. And I'll just really quickly open that up to demonstrate kind of how that works. So I just clicked on the link for Reference Solutions here. And right in here under jobs and internships, I can pull this up. And let's say that I want to apply as an administrative assistant. I can quickly do a search using that job title in Plano, Texas. Few results. It will pull from Indeed. Now, you'll have to click through to actually see the job posting, which is a little bit less convenient than Indeed itself might be. But the benefit is that if you look here in this company name column, So for instance, here at Toyota, you can check on the Toyota company information, or in this case, one of the many Toyota off-brands and subsidiaries here. But this can be an extremely useful thing. Let's see if I can get it to actually pull one up. City of Dallas, Texas. We'll go with this first one here just to use it as an example. And we can see additional job postings for the city of Dallas. We can see the category of job. This was actually a bad example because it doesn't include sales volume because it doesn't do sales. I'll go back out and try again. Let's try Intrusion Inc. And please recall that we are using this as an example, not as an advocacy for or against this company that we are using as an example. Apparently it's considered a non-classified establishment and has no information. All right, well, we tried. So that is how you can use reference solutions to boost your job search. Additionally, we do have access to LinkedIn Learning, which has a lot of great courses to assist with document creation and job searching. You can see kind of, I did a search for job searching on LinkedIn Learning here, and it came up with over 2,000 results. A first view, finding a job using LinkedIn, rocking your LinkedIn profile, optimize your resume for applicant tracking systems. So a lot of really great options from people that have a lot of expertise in these subjects. I highly recommend checking them out, especially if you are in the midst of a job search and you're struggling to get those applications submitted and accepted. Both of these resources are covered more in depth in other Plano library classes, or you can always book a librarian if you want more information and one-on-one guidance. Okay, additionally, so we're going to be using the City of Plano Careers website as an example for some job posting components. So this is just going to show us how these job postings look in many cases. So we'll go ahead and click through in just a moment here, but first we kind of can use these screenshots as a guidance to point out some different things. So we start out with our main website for the organization here. This is the careers page, so it's going to have a little bit more information, trying to attract potential applicants here. We can see that it includes the organization values here and the benefits. So you can see the benefits there. Further down, it might include the application process and relevant policies, as well as general employment requirements for the city. Within the job posting itself, some things you can expect to see include the expected number of hours per week, or it will indicate full or part-time. So in this example here, this particular position of animal services officer, which admittedly was posted over a month ago. I don't know what if it's currently available still, but you can see that this was a full-time position. You can also see here the salary range. In government positions especially, these are often posted for everyone to see, but even in the private sector, more and more we are seeing salary range being posted with the job. Down below, we can see the job description beginning. You can start to see more of the values and benefits in this particular case, but usually then the job description will explain what the position is for, as well as their minimum qualifications. One thing I do want to mention about minimum qualifications is that often they can be or subject to equivalent substitution, meaning that even if something is listed as a requirement, if you believe that while you don't meet that requirement specifically, but you have some similar experience in your past, it may be worth applying anyway and explaining why you think that's a good substitute. Back to the job description though, that would include a list of duties, characteristics of the person in that role, some essential job functions, the level of supervision, so whether this person is going to be supervised frequently or have little supervision, their working conditions and expectations for physical activity, and anything else that's applicable. Are there any other questions before we start to go through a walkthrough of a job application?
We do have a question about alternative job sites like headhunter sites
Oh,
and companies that do that.
I see.
Do you have any information on those, or?
I don't really. I'm not, that would be something you'd probably want to ask someone that's more of a careers expert. You might consider coming to the workshop on Friday to see if they have anything to say about those. Um, of course, general advice always, try to vet those with other people that work in your field. So if this is a, say, a modeling type headhunter site, or if you're trying to freelance using a site like Fiverr, definitely check with others in your field to determine whether it's reputable and worth it. I don't have any information about sites like that, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at what a job application looks like. So let's see here. I'm going to pull up, actually need to go back a slide so I can get this link. Okay, so we are now on the Team Plano website. Let's see here. So like I said, we have our perks, applications and qualifications, relevant policies, and the procedure for applying. And of course, up here is where we can find the available positions. Now, one thing to note is that these job processes work kind of quickly. I've created myself a fake profile here to fill out a fake job application. And of course, in the time since I had filled out that application, it had been filled. So my lifeguard application is no longer helpful or available for us to look at. So we're going to apply fresh for something that is currently a position with the city of Plano. So let's see here. We'll go ahead and fill out. As you can see, we have 82 jobs currently open. Looks like head lifeguard 2 is available. So we'll go ahead and try to be head lifeguard. So looking at this particular position, we can see that it's a full-time position that is regular as opposed to temporary, meaning that there is not a set period of employment, but this person will likely be expected to continue working until they leave the organization. And the salary range is almost $13 an hour to almost $19 an hour. Here we can see our job details, the essential job functions, and I'll actually zoom in a little bit so that we can see it a little better here while you're viewing. And if we want to apply for this job, we can find the button to do so right here. We can click apply for job. And so we will go through what kinds of different information is required. Something good to know about this is that, excuse me, I need to pull it back up, is that a lot of these municipal sites, as well as corporate sites, have very similar information required of you. So once you know one, you kind of know them all. So we agree to the terms and conditions. They will often have a pre-qualification set of questions. So whether you can legally work, we have to attach a resume. So I have a document that I've entitled resume, which is not actually resume, but we're not actually submitting this, so it doesn't particularly matter. We'll go ahead and click upload and done. And we have now attached the resume to the application. Once we're in here, so in this case, this is me. I did include some of my own information, so I've got my degree listed here, so you can see we have a drop down for everything from less than high school education to postdoctorate. And of course, the requirements for this position is a lifeguard position. So most likely you've got high schoolers that have a less than high school education. So lots of options for every level. If there's licenses and certifications, you can add them below. Language skills, if you speak a second or third or fourth language, adding those can be a great benefit to many organizations. And of course, degrees, you'll want to list out any degrees that you have. There is a skills questionnaire here that would be important to fill out. So in this case, it asks if I have the relevant experience to become to become this head lifeguard. And in this scenario, we'll say that I do. We'll also pretend that I have a pool operator certification. I say pretend because this is a fake job application that I'm filling out to demonstrate. However, I recommend not lying on these, as that could potentially turn into a situation where, if best case scenario you get the position, it can only be a bad thing when later on the truth of the matter is found out, and it becomes a legal or liability issue. As in this case, if this person didn't have a pool operator certification, then most likely they would not continue employment with the city after that is discovered. So fake, yes, I did get it in this case. And in this case, we'll say yes. It asks us to explain if there has been any firing or being asked to resign for a job. These are not yes or no answers so much as we want to have an opportunity to explain ourselves. Once again, be honest about your past experiences. This kind of thing does tend to come out over time. So just explain yourself and the scenarios behind it, and go from there. So we'll go ahead and say no so we can continue on with this application. Have you ever had your driver's license revoked? Another couple of requirement questions here. And then another yes or no question. Am I at least 17 years of age? Yes, I do work as a librarian. And usually with the city, it does ask if you have any relatives working for the city or holding office, to avoid situations of nepotism. It doesn't necessarily preclude you from employment with the city or organizations, but they typically don't want people to be related in the same chain of command. It also usually wants to know how you learned of the job. So in this case, we'll say current employee. And we'll put myself. All right, we'll go to the next page. There are often diversity questions that may or may not be required. So in this case, if I choose not to answer, I can click decline to answer. And then lastly, there is a review and submission page where you can view all the different pages. In this case, I can see the screening, the resume, any information about degrees and experience that I've input. And at that point, if I was satisfied with it, I would likely submit it. In this case, since it's, once again, a fake application, I won't do so. But that is kind of how the process works. So we'll go ahead and go back to our slides. Before we continue, are there any questions at this time?
Not at this time.
Fantastic. Okay, moving on, we're going to start working on the third objectives: to apply tips and tricks to your job search. So here are some job search some tips for when you are conducting your job search. And as you could see, that was a pretty basic job application input screen. They don't always contain everything that you might expect. So in this case, there wasn't a spot to include a cover letter. And we do recommend including a cover letter if at all possible. The way to do that would be to create your cover letter and your resume in the same document so that they can be submitted at the same time. There often will be a place to separately submit that, though. Or if it's a situation where you have to email a person with your job application, then you would attach it to that email. You'll want to plan to submit customized and tailored documents for every job postings. Um, as cover letters in particular do need to be job specific, you'll likely recycle a lot of the same language for different postings, but you do want to ensure that the correct organization is referenced. You don't want the embarrassing situation of applying to one retail store and in the cover letter you mention the other retail store that you had previously applied to. Um, as for your resume, you may end up wanting to create multiple versions of that to highlight different skill sets. Um, if you're applying for virtually the same kind of position every time, then you might be fine with just one. But if you're really kind of searching a lot of different areas or exploring a lot of different career options, definitely don't be submitting the same resume to, say, administrative professional positions as to customer service representatives, as just an example. That will not serve you in the best light, as it will highlight the wrong skills for one job, perhaps, or even for both. Um, you will want to try to let your network know that you are job searching. You'll want to activate your network. That's because that others who are familiar with your professional ethos and reputation can inform you of opportunities at their company. Having someone who you know at a company where you're applying is a great boon, since they can usually give you a candid evaluation of their company, and also will potentially give you at least a leg up in the process. Um, during the application process, others who know you within your network might be able to vouch for your skills. Um, and of course, your network doesn't just have to include people that you know personally. That can be professional groups and organizations, websites, and email lists. As these are not necessarily people you get together with in a social context, but possibly people that have seen the work that you've done, attended talks that you've presented, or worked alongside you in group and school projects, if that's your situation. However, activating your network or not, you do not want to disclose that you are job searching externally to anyone at your current job, including your manager and your peers, because that could potentially result in you being declined projects, or even being pushed out ahead of your ideal departure date. Lastly, don't assume that you will get any of the jobs that you've applied for. Assume that any in-progress application will be turned away and plan to continue your search. It's a much better situation to receive multiple offers than to stop searching only to be rejected by something you thought was a sure thing. Reasonable organizations that you are applying for will assume that you are involved in multiple application processes at the same time. And you can even communicate with them a little bit about that. For instance, if you are waiting on an offer, but are also pondering a second job offer, and if you prefer the one where you're waiting on an offer, you can ask about the time frame for when you can expect to hear that decision. And that may yield a more expeditious answer. All right, any questions at this time?
Not at this time.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to look a little bit about tracking the status of your job applications. I highly recommend at least recording some basic information about your job applications, just because the different companies that have these applications or these job postings have different ways of handling them. In some cases, what you may find is that if you apply for a job and are in the running for this job, but the website closes the posting because they have enough submissions, they may actually take down the job posting, and you will potentially lose access to the information in that posting, such as the job title and description. And you don't want to end up in that position. So some information to definitely include are the company name, the job title, the job description, any contacts you have at the company, particularly the interviewer name and contact information, and the date of your application. One great option, which we'll look at on the next slide how that might look, is to create an Excel spreadsheet for your job search. And that way you can just have it all in one place, quickly fill it out, and at least have that information. However, the job descriptions themselves can get quite long. So another option, or even a simultaneous option, can be emailing the job description to yourself at the time when you apply. And that will actually help you a lot because it includes everything about the job as well as the date that you submitted it, all in one place, easily searchable and stored in the internet. Let's see here. Here is an example I wrote up of a job application log, which is useful because Microsoft Excel actually has job application log templates, which is a great option. So I just used a basic one to kind of pretend to start a job search. So for example, I have the city of Plano in a couple of cases, some descriptions and keywords, and then kind of a status indicator based on when my interview date and my follow-up date are listed. So for the second two postings in this pretend example, I don't have an interview yet, but in the first case, I did have an interview and plan to follow up 3 days later. So that can be a great option if you are a detail-oriented person, or if you are finding this to be overwhelming, maybe that's a good indicator that emailing yourself the job posting is a little bit less intimidating, and lets you continue quickly with your search. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about some unique situations, starting with work gaps. So there can be a lot of different reasons for work gaps on your resume, and often interviewers will ask about them. But indicating that on your resume, if possible, can be a great opportunity for you to, if not stymie those questions, at the very least, get yourself thinking about what you're going to say in an interview when that comes up. So that could be anything from childcare to returning to school to, a recession that made it difficult for you to find a job. Another way you can indicate and plan that job gap is by highlighting skill development and any professional activities that took place during that gap, including something like volunteer work, or if you had a hobby that you were working on, looking at ways to break that hobby down into some skills that would be applicable at your new career position. And lastly, of course, be prepared to answer questions about work gaps and do so in a way that is succinct and to the point and honestly matter of fact. You don't want to get yourself into a situation where you end up sounding like you're making excuses for yourself when really you're just briefly explaining, I was out of work for 5 years because I was helping take care of our family or a family member, and move on. And that kind of social cue will help your interviewer do so as well. Another unique situation is a career transition. Moving from any career to a far different career can be a daunting consideration, but some ways to make that a little bit easier are highlighting transferable skills within your resume. That can be a matter of focusing in the job portion of the resume on skills that from your previous career that are most applicable to your new one. For instance, if you were previously a teacher and you're moving into a finance world, that might be, skills like if you were a math teacher, then obviously you may have a little bit more skill with numbers. If you were an economics teacher, then you'll want to focus on that information. If you weren't, then maybe you want to focus more on detail orientedness and other soft skills that can be really beneficial in that environment. You do want to mention your career transition intent within your resume objective statement and your cover letter, because this is a very particular situation. You definitely want to make it clear that you indeed applied for this job with the intent to move into this job. You don't want it to seem like a mistake or make it sound like it's coming out of left field. Talking a little bit about why you want to move into this field, focusing on the positive aspects and not why you're leaving the old field, of course. Lastly, you do want to look in advance about your plan for transition into this new career, because a lateral shift to a new position at a similar level and pay scale is not always possible. You may have to work a transitional job or even return to school to earn credentials, depending on what position you're hoping to achieve. Additionally, one that is a unique situation is the long distance application, where you are applying for jobs far away from where you currently live. So you'll want to include your objective statement on your resume regarding your intent to relocate, as this will indicate to the future employers that yes, you are coming to the area. You're not just taking a scattershot approach. Yes, you definitely meant to apply to a job in Paris, France, and not Paris, Texas. Definitely specify that you are intending to move to this location, or at least to move. If you are including your home address on your resume, definitely indicate your desired move location, such as like leave your city, but then in parentheses afterwards, include a subtext about moving to, say, Denver, Colorado, 2023. Just a little bit of another indicator there. Now, traveling to interview and planning to relocate are some more substantial aspects of this. If you are having to travel to interview, some organizations will pay for travel expenses, but not all will. That really depends on your industry. Additionally, short-term notice may be required with, especially with these. So for instance, if you have an interview in town, it may only require half a day to take off work or set aside, versus traveling further away may be a longer term commitment of a few days on very short notice. So definitely consider how you will handle that if that arises with your current employment situation specifically. Decide what you'll say to your boss, basically. And of course, you'll want to make a plan for relocation. So, consider costs for your move, as a lot of organizations won't pay for your relocation. And of course, consider timing on lease agreements and whatnot. So that may indicate when you have to begin or plan your search. All right, we have reached the end of our content. Are there any last minute questions before we talk about our upcoming programs?
None yet.
Great. I'm going to talk through some of our upcoming financial programs or business programs. And if there are any last minute questions, please drop them in the chat before we finalize our content. So as we've mentioned, this is the second of 4 Job Seekers Toolkit seminars that we have on Tuesdays at 3. Next week at 3, we will be back here for interviews, talking about how to approach interviews and preparation for them. And the following week, we will talk about follow-up to programs. We also have 2 more Job Seekers Toolkit workshops. This Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. at Haggard Library, we'll have a targeted job search workshop. And then the following week, we will have a mock interviews workshop, which is a really fantastic opportunity to have a mock interview with a business professional. That is also from 1 to 3. These are all, that one in particular is going to be first come, first serve. So you'll want to make sure to get there ahead of time if you want a chance to practice. Additionally, we have SCORE mentors available at Schimmelfinnick Library on Thursdays, and TWOS has Create Your Elevator Pitch on Tuesday, August 30th. All right, are there any additional questions?
Yes, we had a question about soft skills and what are actual soft skills versus hard skills?
Okay, that's a great question. And we will talk a little bit about that next week as well. Soft skills versus hard skills. Hard skills are technical skills, the ability to do a task, a specific task. Soft skills are going to be more interpersonal skills, the ability to communicate well, skills that are not as much taught in school, but tend to be learned when interacting with other people and can be very useful in almost all fields. Fantastic. Any other questions popping up before we end today's program?
We had a question in the chat about a review of a resume and cover letter. So that was last week's workshop, but we do have available as part of our databases with, I believe, tutor.com. You can submit a resume and cover letter through that database for review. I believe next month when our Engage brochure comes out, we will also have another resume specific program. So be sure to pick up our fall Engage brochure, which will have those dates included.
Yes, fantastic. Indeed, tutor.com does have, as part of the adult-oriented services, some assistance with career, which does include resume review. And that's another resource that we have through Plano Public Library. And lastly, if you do have any questions, I've put my contact information on the screen. You're welcome to email me with any questions about this or other library questions, and I'll do my best to connect you with the best possible resources. If there are no final questions, we'll go ahead and bid you all farewell and see you next time. Thank you so much for attending today's class.